Hello, and I hope you all are having a good day. I want to update everyone on the Afterimage effect as to how you can apply it to a modular character. So first, I want to thank you, Allende. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. But he asked, how can I get this to work with a modular character? So far, only the torso main mesh of my character is doing that effect. Thanks in advance. Well, thank you, Allende, for asking the question. And since I haven't really thought about how you could apply it to a modular character, so I did some testing and I learned a bit of new things about Unreal in the process. And I figured out how you can go about and apply it to a modular character. So thanks again. Alright, so there are two ways to go about this. The first way is an easier way, and the second way is a more roundabout way to do it. And I did the second way first before I realized I could do it the first way. So I'll go through the first way first, and then I'll go through the second way since it's more complicated. So in this blueprint, character blueprint, we can see that there's a modular. I set up a modular character. And if you're interested in which asset I'm using, you can go to the marketplace and then search for the stylized modular character. If you don't have it, you might need to buy it. It was one of the free monthly content in the past. Unreal gives out 5 free content every month, so make sure you guys get them every month, and they might come in handy one day. Just like this one, it was perfect for me for testing. That's the perk of using Unreal. So in this blueprint, you can see that I have the 3 different Niagara systems in it. And one is for the main mesh. Oops, I think I did hands in. Yeah, one is for the main mesh, and one is for the chest, and one is for legs. I didn't do any for the hands because just having the chest and legs is enough for this purpose. So right now, only the Niagara main mesh is working, and the other ones are not. So that's the issue that you will run into when you first try to set it up, probably when you put it into the blueprint as you try to make it a modular character. So I found out that to combat this, well, first I made these 3 different Niagara particle systems for the modular parts. You don't have to do this, you can just use one. I did it just to test things out. But to have the system working, you have to go into the system and then change the initialized mesh reproduction sprite. You have to change the preview mesh into what you are using. So just now I'm using the the smoking chest for the chest area. So when you put this in, it will say oh, there's a CPU access error. You gotta fix it now. So once you click on fix now, the Niagara should update so that it can take in this mesh, the scalar mesh. So all you have to do is just to save, compile and save. Yeah. And then if you go to the chest, right now it's not. If you compile and save, yeah, then it'll appear. And if it still doesn't appear, I think the reason why is you might need to change this default into attached parent, and then just compile and save again. And then just you can do auto activate, click it on and off. It might refresh, or you can just compile and save this again as well, and then it'll probably come out. And for legs, it's not out yet as well. It's because I didn't change the legs. We need to change the mesh, scatter mesh for legs too. So I'm going to change it to that specific mesh. So same thing here, it has the CPU access error. Just click on fix now and it should come up like so, and then just save it again. Yeah, and then change it into attached parent if you need to. And then if you just auto activate, it will come out like so. So if I start this up and then play around with it, you can see that it's working on each of the pieces of the modular character. And if I can still kind of turn it on and off using my blueprint. And yeah, so this is the first way to do it. Now for the second way to do this, if your first way doesn't work, I've set up so that I have a character blueprint and then these different modular parts as actor blueprints and 2 animation blueprints. So the animation blueprint is pretty much for the character blueprints over here, these 2 character blueprints. And I made another one for the modular parts. So first I would like to go over the animation blueprint. So for this one, this is for the character itself. It's a pretty simple animation blueprint that I quickly made and for this example. So in the animation graph, it's pretty much a simple state machine that I didn't really name it, so it's just a new state machine. And then inside I have the animation for idle and run, and for run it's just pretty much the run animation, and idle is the idle animation. And for the transitions, I have it. I set a value of speed, a float, and you don't really need direction. I shouldn't have really made a direction, but it's okay. So in the transition, whenever the speed is greater than 0, it will make the transition to run. And if the speed is equal to 0, it will be at the idle state, right? So, and in the event graph, I pretty much use the try get pawn owner and then cast it to the 2 examples here, so then it could run through this state machine. And then I have it so that I have the direction, but I really didn't need the direction at all. I just need the speed. So I took the velocity of the pawn owner, and then return the value of the vector length and then plug it into speed to calculate the speed of which the character is moving. So if it moves, then it will go to the run state, and if it doesn't, then it will go back to the idle state right here. So that's pretty much it for this animation blueprint. It's a pretty simple state machine blueprint that I used for these 2. And for the modular, it's because I made other different blueprints for the modular pieces for the effect, and I made it's so that it's an actor blueprint. I tried using a pawn, but I don't know why it wasn't working, so I made an actor. So in order for the actor blueprint to work, so in the viewport, if I go to my stack mesh, I set the animation mode to blueprint, right? And then animation class is the anim blueprint modular, right? So in order to have this to be in sync with the character movements, I made another new blueprint for the modular. And for this one, it's a bit different since for actor blueprints you can't use the actor pawn owner, you have to use the get owner actor. So by using this, we can cast it to the actor blueprints. So I cast it to the head, the chest, and the legs, and using the sequence node. So the sequence node is pretty much when it'll play the first one, so then 0, and after it runs all these sections, it'll run to 1, and then it'll run these sections and run to 2, and it'll run to these sections, right? So in the actor blueprints, I have a boolean that is moving. So in the variables here, I made a is moving boolean node, which I will explain later in the event graph, like why I'm using it. So basically, I'm taking the is moving and checking if it's true or not. If it's true, then I'll set the speed into 1, and if it's false, then I'll set the speed to 0. And I do this for the rest of the modular pieces that I'm using. And the state machine is pretty much the same thing as the original animation blueprint that I'm using for the character. So there's nothing different about it. It's the same kind of setup with the same states and the same transitions. So that's how you set up for the modular animation blueprint. Okay, so with that setup, let me go through the character blueprint. So in the character blueprint, over here, if I go to the viewport, you can see that we have the character mesh, and I set this as the head. And along with it, there's like the 3 different modular pieces that I'm using. So legs, body, and hands. And you can see there is no Niagara effect onto this blueprint. Because in the event graph here, I am spawning the 3 different actor blueprints into the system. So in the event begin play, I will spawn the head. And then the spawn transform, I made a separate variable, and I made the transform into exactly what I need to as the same where the pieces will go to. So -90 and -90. So the spawn transform will be -90 and -90, and it'll be all the same for the 3 different blueprints, the actor blueprints I'm using. So I use spawn actor head, and then plug in the spawn transform, and then plugged into the attached actor component. And this node pretty much just attaches whatever the spawn actor is at. So you want the return value into target, and then the parent will be the capsule component, which is this. So it will be attached right at the capsule component. When the capsule component moves, it will move along with this will move along with the capsule component, so it'll be what we need to do. I did the same thing for the chest and for the legs, right? So when this begins, it will spawn the chest, head, and legs. So in this, in each of these pieces, I have the skeletal mesh. So for this chest, I have this chest piece here, and the Niagara effect, and the Niagara effect is set to the chest Niagara, right? And this is pretty much the setup for the viewport. And in the event graph, I have 2 different nodes. This W is to check if, like, W key is the moving, right? So you move forward, and then the character will move, and it will change the states. So in order for this chest to change, sorry, my computer just lagged. Giving me a moment. And we're back. I'm sorry about that. So where was I? Right. So I'm pressing down tab, using a W key to check if I'm pressing down W, it will set the is moving into true, and if it's released, it will set the moving into false, and that will be checked in this animation blueprint to see if moving is true or false, and it will set the speed accordingly to change the animation state. Right. And for the F, I'm pretty much doing a deactivate and activate node for the Niagara effect, which I dragged it from the components here and then linked it up. Yep. And another thing you want to do is you want to, by default, these will be checked. So also on F. So these will be checked on by default. You want to uncheck those, because if you don't check those, then when you press W, your character won't be able to move, which I will show you in a bit. So let me go ahead and save first. And yeah, that's pretty much it, how you set it up in the blueprint of each of the character blueprints of your modular character parts. So if I first, let me go and change the game state of the default pawn class into character 2 for this is the second example. And if I play it, then well, you can see the animation for the modular is moving, but why is not my main character not moving? Hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, I forgot. You can only do one at a time, so let me just plug this back into the character 2 so that it could work. So let me compile and save, and then it should work now. So yeah, that's how you set up the effect to have the modular character to work. And you can see that the character is running as well. And if I press F, it will disappear. It'll go on and off. And as you, if you see, if I press like S, A, or D, the character effect will be the same because I didn't. That's because I didn't add in more effects, more keyboard bindings into this. So if you want to do a ASD as well, so you gotta put in the keyboard binding for each of those. Okay, and then you just gotta link it up to it as well, like so, and then just set it up like that, and it should work. Yeah, as you can see, the hands are, the chest hands are moving. Yeah, the arms are moving. Yeah, so you do it for a SND as well. Yeah, let me explain why you want to have these two off. That's because if I have these on, and if I play, and if I want to press W, it won't let me go forward. But you can see the modular effect, the Afterimage effect is moving as intended, right? But I can't move my character forward. So that's why you want to have this checked off. And that is pretty much it on how you could make it work. And so far, the other problem right now is if you don't want this to start in the beginning, you will run into a problem if you do it in the second way. So if I go ahead and do, let me close all these first. And if I go ahead and turn off auto activate for each of these Niagara effects. Yep, so when it's beginning, there's no Niagara effect, right? So if I turn it on, then yeah, only the head will, only the Niagara effect for the main mesh will come out. I don't know why this is happening, but in order to combat this, you will need to have the auto activate on at all times for this to work. So we'll turn that on. Turn this on. Also turn this on. Okay, so in order for it to you have it on auto activate, so when you start by playing it, it'll always come up, right? So how do we hide it in the beginning? So in the beginning event, begin play, we will need to set up a logic where you will set the Niagara effect to be, its visibility to be off, and then have it deactivated first and then turn off the visibility again. So we need that kind of logic, which I can go over pretty quickly in this tutorial, in this video. Alright, so let's get to it. So first, after the, let me just move this around first. After the enable input, you want to grab the Niagara component and then search for set visibility. And have the new visibility unchecked, so it will set the visibility as 0. As invisible. And then you will want to drag out from the Niagara component again, and then search for deactivate, and link this up. So like so. So what this will do essentially, will set the Niagara into invisible, and then it will deactivate the Niagara effect. But with this set to invisible, when you like press F again and then it activates, you won't be able to see it because the visibility is still set to 0. So how do we do it so that we can, when we press F, it will activate the visibility? Well, we can do this by making a new variable, a Boolean variable. And I'm going to call this as start game. And on F, so whenever I press F, so the first F I press, I will check to see if the start game is true or false. So I'll make a branch. And then plug this in. And I will set the start game. I'll compile and save first and press this, set the start game as true in the beginning. So when this is true, I will set the start game as false. And then grab the component, Niagara component, and then set the visibility as true. Like so. And then I will make a activate node. And then link that up. So then this logic is like, when I press the first F, which is the start game is true, it will go to the true branch, and then it will set it as false, and then set the visibility as visible, and then activate, since we deactivated the Niagara first here. So we activate it again. And then when it's false, which for the rest of the game it will be false, because I set the start game as false already, it will go to the false section, and then we'll just do the flip-flop like we had before over here. And that's pretty much it for the logic for setting up the visibility of the effect at the beginning. And I'm just going to go through and apply that to all of the other parts. So give me a moment. Alright, now I'm back, and I set this logic to all the other pieces. So if I go ahead and press play now, you can see that there's no effects yet. So if I press F, it doesn't work. Alright, so I figured out my mistake in my actor blueprints for the modular parts. At first it was like this. I didn't have the Niagara inside the skeletal mesh, so I figured that if you just drag it in and have it inside the skeletal mesh, it will work. So I did that for all 3 of the different parts with the Niagara mesh inside the skeletal mesh, and setting up the logic for making it invisible at first and then applying the visibility later on, right? So as well for the legs, same thing here, same logic. And then in the Niagara systems, I made everything, just to make everything the same, I made everything to the source mode to attach parents. So I did this for the chest, and then I did this for the face, the head, and for the legs as well. So with that, it works. So at first there's no effects, right? If I press F, it'll come out like so, and that's pretty much how you set it up. Yeah, and one more thing is that you could just use one Niagara system. I have the chest over here. I'm going to change everything to chest as well, like so. So yeah, you can use just one Niagara system to work with all the modular parts if you want to. You don't have to do 3 different or even more for all your modular parts. So hopefully this was helpful for everyone who's trying to figure out how to make the modular character to work with this effect. And Unreal can be pretty weird sometimes, so you have to like kind of do roundabout ways to figure out how to make things work. But I think that's part of the fun of trying to problem solve and using the Unreal Engine to help with your game development process. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day, and remember to always keep learning.